Hello, I'm Jamie Sefton and welcome back to the GamesIndustry.biz Investment Summit Online, sponsored by Xsola and Renaissance PR. We had some great talks and panels yesterday from the likes of Sega and Codemasters, so if you'd like to catch up with any of them, you can see all the talks on live.gamesindustry.biz. Next up, we have a panel presentation from IGDA entitled Implementing Alternative Monetization in Games. So I'll hand over to Nika from IGDA to introduce the panel.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have this panel today with the Investment Online Summit. This is really fantastic. We're having a panel discussion today on alternative forms of monetization in games, specifically when it comes to the web also known as the internet, which means a lot of different things nowadays. I don't know, but I remember when the internet started, right? We didn't even think about where games come into fold, making money using the internet, and it's really interesting because in this day and age, creators are looking for alternative forms of revenue, and I think that we are going to have this amazing discussion today. We've got Andres and Chris Lawrence. Andres and Chris, do you guys mind just doing quick introductions, like who are you, what are you, where are you? Andres, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hello, my name is Andrzej Mazur. You can call me Ender or Andrew. I'm running the Enclave Games Studio. I'm a game developer and I'm based in Warsaw, Poland.
Awesome. Chris?
Hello, my name is Chris Lawrence and I'm a senior program manager at Grant for the Web, which is housed at the Interledger Foundation. And so basically helping to launch this fund and to grow it and make it have some impact on helping to diversify web monetization broadly in games and beyond. And Andres is one of our current grantees. So Enclave Games working on a bunch of stuff for us.
Awesome. And I'll be moderating this discussion. My name is Nika Noor. I'm the Executive Director of the International Game Developers Association Foundation, known as IGDAF. We support diversity and inclusion amongst aspiring game devs and current game devs at an international scope. But when it comes to the needs of content creators, there's this whole new fund that's going on with Grant for the Web. And we want to talk a little bit about web monetization in games. Chris, do you mind kind of giving us the brass tacks of what Grant for the Web is?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So basically, Grant for the Web is a $100 million fund. The fund, at least now, is set to run for 5 years. And the idea is we know that most web monetization or monetization on the web models, while they may not be broken, they're broken for the majority of people who might want to take advantage of them. So we know that a typical advertising model, only benefits the top, few percents of content creators. We know that other things in terms of platforms that data mine and have surveillance capitalism are obviously problematic. And we also know that people feeling like they have to maintain 20, 30, 50 subscriptions for the content that they want is also sort of laborious. It may be less predatory, but it doesn't mean it's not kind of stressful to the end user and the content consumer, not let alone the content creator. And so the fund really is looking to take two core pieces of web technology, the Interledger Protocol and the Open Web Monetization Standard, proposed Open Web Monetization Standard, and see, can we actually use the web to distribute funds in a variety of ways? Can we actually have the web treat money like it currently treats data in packets is a basic idea of how you think about it. And so the fund is there to basically produce case studies, produce exemplars, to produce sort of best in show examples of people that are willing to go and look at new business models on the web that are of and for and by the web. They're not necessarily old business models like advertising or subscriptions that have sort of been welded onto the web. And for years unsuccessfully, and then more recently very successfully in terms of creating a whole new markets on the web. But that's left most content creators, most content consumers sort of out in the cold or sort of having to adhere to these business practices that don't feel very much like how the web works. So the fund really is to do two things. how the technology can advance this, and then how the actually social practices and new models can come in behind that. And we know that this is new, it's fresh. There's not a lot of people that understand that or are using it. And so the grant funds are basically there to kickstart innovation and creativity.
So as we're kickstarting, this innovation creativity, Andre, you're a grantee of this awesome new fund. I mean, is it awesome? How are you actually applying it to games? What is your experience been like? And two, how do you implement this new model in web-based games?
Yeah, I'm truly excited about this. It's really, really interesting. When I heard about it a year ago, I was so excited that we were able to have web monetization in my JS13K games competition, which runs online every year. From the game dev point of view, it's really simple to implement because it's a single meta tag attached to a HTML website, which makes a game or a website or basically any content monetized. So whenever I put the meta tag on the game on the website, that content is already web monetized. I can already receive micropayments to a wallet I can set up. And from that point, I can start implementing stuff in my own games. Usually when dealing with publishers, most of the time it's about implementing adverts, which is time consuming and sometimes don't bring any decent revenue, even though you spent a lot of time on implementing that. With web monetization, I'm really excited that this is a proposal for an open standard that you can start working right away, and that I can work on 100% of my code. I can offer something to the web monetized users who visit my game and actually code something within my game that will be an offer for them. So it's really interesting. I really love the experiments so far, and both from the creator point of view, but also the competition organizer point of view, because people submitted 48 games, web monetized games last year. We are having JS13K games this year as well, and people are already started submitting some web monetized games. So it's awesome to see creativity, how you can use the fact that somebody is a monetized user and offer something within the game for them.
And just to clarify for the audience, especially, what can web monetization be applied to in terms of games? Like, it doesn't apply to Steam and console, right? It's web-based, HTML5. Can we clarify, just for maybe some of our non-technical investors and funders and people that may be interested, specifically what type of games can you create utilizing these standards, or apply for proposal with Grant for the Web?
Sure. So it's a web standard. So any game that can be run on the web, any game that can be exported to the web. So you can use web game engines, but you can export from Unreal or Unity to the web. And as long as you can launch it in a browser, it's a web game, so you can implement web monetization.
And Chris, do you mind explaining how the web monetization API actually works and how it's different from a traditional subscription service that we usually already see websites employing?
Sure. So I make two key distinctions there. So one, the open standard basically, as Andres explained, just creates, lets the code go there, which then basically talks to anybody who's a web monetized consumer, basically connecting wallet to wallet. That's the easiest way to understand it. So the browser plugin currently, we're hoping to get it native into browsers. That's one of the sort of long game pieces of this. But right now you'd need a Chrome or a Firefox extension. But it basically opens up a stream between the two wallets. And so that's the meta tag that Andres was talking about on his games. And so myself as a web monetized user, I'll be streaming and getting any rewards or benefits of that within that particular game. That as a standard, as open, anyone could do that. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more complicated, or where it kind of crosses into your question around the subscription part of it. Currently, there's only one web monetized provider for Coil. Coil CEO, Stefan Thomas, was part of the team that developed all this underlying technology. He's also heavily invested in making these things standards. But Coil is the proof of concept company. And so how that works, and that's on the consumer side. So if you wanted to play Enclave's games and be able to stream them the micropayments and take advantage of the things that they built into those games, the extra lives or, you know, extra equipment or whatever the little features are in that game for web monetized users, Coil's business model is you pay them $5 a month. And then as a consumer, you can stream anybody who's a web monetized content creator. It basically enables that wallet to wallet connection. Now, but the technology itself could have all kinds of business models, tipping, one-time payments. And so for the ecosystem to grow, we'll need other companies who have maybe different business models or competing subscription models, whatever that may be. And Grant for the Web is heavily invested in looking and granting those kind of projects as well, because we're going to need more coils. And Coil openly admits that. For this to work long term, we're going to need other methods for people to become web monetized consumers. So on the consumer side, currently your only option is Coil, and that's the subscription model that basically activates your ability to pay. But the technology itself is open and can be deployed and employed in many different ways. And that's where we are in the innovation cycle, is funding and kickstarting and seeing who's got different ideas about how that might happen differently on the consumer side. So it's a long-winded answer, but it is important to kind of keep those two things separate. The code works. The code would work if I could wave a magic wand and there were 3 Coil competitors right now. Let's say there's, you know, Coil competitor X and Y, and they played Enclave games, they would still be streaming money, because on Andre's side, it doesn't matter who the provider is. So he's set up, those games are set up to receive the. Does that make any sense?
It does. No, it absolutely does. I mean, and Andre, I'd love to kind of dig into a little bit. You know, you're a grantee recipient. You're utilizing this new standard and applying it to your games. But to broaden it just a little bit, I'd love your perspective, because I think we forget about this a lot. Content creators, specifically game makers, game devs, revenue streams can be limited, and you know, as the barrier to entry to make games is minimal, but the barrier to actually make money from making games is quite convoluted and almost a little obscure. Can you talk a little bit about like what the challenges are for creators trying to build revenue streams, and how web monetization maybe has been different from how you typically generate any sort of income?
Sure. So I think it's important to compare web monetization with adverts, because most of the income so far from licensing our games is basically selling those licenses to portals, who then make us implement different types of adverts, which the revenue is coming from. So basically, to have a solid income, we have to have millions of users, and you have to show them adverts to make any decent living out of that. While web monetization works out of the box in a way that we don't have to wait a few months for the reports. So we don't have to wait 4 months after implementing some weird code to show the ads. This web monetization thing works instantly, and whenever someone visits my website with a game, they start streaming money right away to my own wallet. And this can be scaled in a way that a single person will visit my game and play it, and I will be paid immediately. This can easily scale to 1 million people visiting the website. It's like if my server is capable enough, it works similarly like sending data. So I think it's really important and really great that this can be scaled so well. This can work for single consumers, single players visiting the game up to millions, and that this streams money directly and instantly to my wallet. So I can instantly see if I'm earning any money. I can adjust to that. I can see if people are happy with the game, with bonuses for paying subscribers, etc., etc.
That's awesome. Chris, what about security and privacy? You know, like how, like what are the modes, what are the challenges? Maybe just some, you know, we're adding this API to our games, to our content. If we have security and privacy concerns because we're dealing with the internet, can you kind of just give a little bit more insight in how all of that works, and kind of and you know, just dispel any misconceptions about transferring money on the internet?
I don't know if I can clear that hurdle, but what I will say, at least in, Coil's model, which again is the only one right now, but the important thing is that the wallets talk to each other. They bring no data other than the endpoint destination of the wallet and the amount that's being transferred. So actually, I'll explain it this way. Many content creators are actually frustrated by the amount of data that it does not collect. It really only understands and keeps that information about, like, wallet, you know, this isn't the real code, but wallet XYZ2 is talking to wallet XYZ3, and the amount that is relevant to that, the streaming rate, the amount, and then in each side, which currency, whether it's fiat or crypto at that point, that's up to both sides of that wallet, how they want to pay and how they want to be paid. That's the only information it's collecting. And so some content creators, as I said, are frustrated because they actually, you know, maybe where the they would actually prefer some additional data because it would help them understand this better. Coil, and I don't know if there's going to be any kind of like little descriptor, but I can get a great blog post that goes deep into the privacy first philosophy of Coil, and even from the philosophy and the technical level, that says that they have basically been resistant to anything that isn't just that financial transfer between the two wallets, and it doesn't collect, know, or transfer any other relevant user data. There's also protections between wherever you're drawing the funds from to your wallet. And so a company like Uphold, you know, and to get regulated and all the things that they knew to do their thing, have the kind of security and privacy things, and that relationship between the digital wallet and how whatever is funding that wallet, via a bank or a card or whatever. It has all those sort of typical fintech and, you know, financial rules and regulations to protect that relationship as well.
Awesome. Andre, do you mind talking a little bit more about your competition? We kind of breezed over it without getting into the details, but I'd love to chat about the ins and outs of your competition. What website does it live on so that people can look it up or join? I think that would be helpful.
Sure. So JS13K Games is the name of the competition. The JS13kgames.com is the URL. It runs for a month every year since 2012. If you're still up to it, there's like 4 days to actually code something and submit. It ends on the September 13th, so pretty quick. But the main thing about the comp is that you have to submit a web game that will fit 13 kilobytes zip package. That's quite a challenge. But it seems people like the concept, so it's nice to see a growth in the number of games submitted to the competition over the years. And as I mentioned, we introduced the web monetization category last year. It's also present this year. And if anyone's interested how you can implement web monetization in the games, all the games from all the years are available on the website. You can play them. Plus, all the source code of those games is available on GitHub. So you can literally pick any game submitted to the competition and see how they implemented web monetization or how the game itself was built.
That's fantastic. Chris, if we wanted to learn more about Grant for the Web, or if maybe we don't have technical backgrounds, where do we go? What's the URL? What's the jazzy business about this? Where are you on the internet?
Well, you can find us definitely at grantfortheweb.org. So pretty straightforward. We also, from that URL, have a link to our discussion forum. It's right there in bold at the top. There's also a blog that's, again, right there from the top nav. We're very active on Twitter, actually, so at Grant for the Web. We sort of participate there a lot and get into conversations as talk about the program. And I'll give a bit of a sneak peek. I can't give too many details, but we do plan on launching a pretty deeply interactive community, social network here over the next couple months that will invite in grantees, community members, and we really do plan on very deeply investing to building the community aspects of this with a lot of sticky features and a lot of way for people to connect to each other, connect their projects to others, to learn more, and bonus to boot, it'll be web monetized. So it'll actually be a really interesting laboratory and experimental space that's baked in for people to play with this technology on both the consumer and content creator side. And often a lot of us are both things.
That's fantastic. Andrej, where do we find you if people wanted to reach out and learn more? What's your Twitter handle? You don't have to get out your email address. We don't know who's watching, but.
Sure. So my Twitter handle is Ender with 3 as second E. You can basically find my activities through Enclave Games, which is a Twitter handle and website and everything else, or JS13K Games, GameDev.js also. So if you're into web games, there is a high chance you will bump into some of the projects I'm running.
Well, thank you, Andrej, over at Enclave Games, and Chris at Grant for the Web. The last plugin I'll put in here is if you are a diverse, aspiring game dev or a game dev that comes from a marginalized community, the IGDA Foundation serves its own grantee program to support individuals that are either mid-career or starting out, as well as working with awesome collective communities like Black in Gaming, Latinx, and marginalized genders and various groups. If you ever need help, if shit's going on, feel free to reach out to me. I'm over at Twitter at Nika, N-I-K-A. It's very simple. We are committed to building more allies like Chris and Andrej who really, really care about making sure that we are diverse, equitable, and inclusive in this industry. And we make sure to incorporate it in all facets, whether it's from the funding and the investment level, all the way down to web monetization. The IGDA Foundation is here not to be a mall cop about it, but to ensure that we're talking about these conversations, thinking them through. And we can't have these conversations unless we're having them with leaders like yourselves, Chris and Andrej. So I'm really excited to see where Grant for the Web moves forward and how we can also make sure that we reach diverse communities to also look into these opportunities and apply, because it does not matter what body you were born in or what your race, creed, religion, whatever is. Every person should be welcome to make games, regardless of your personal background. And we believe that to the bottom of our core and our soul and our passionate volunteers. So thank you, Andrej and Chris, and thank you to this investment summit for giving us the space to have this conversation. We know that Grant for the Web is new. We're excited to help promote and educate individuals on its mission and purpose and goals, and make sure that game creators like Andre are applying, going in there, getting that cash, coming up with web monetization. Look, I want to be straightforward. Come in and grab your bag of cash, figure it out. These are really ridiculous times. And I think we should be open to trying all different models and solutions. And the video game industry can be quite linear when it comes to what it means to, doing what you love and making money doing it. So thank you both. Any final thoughts or comments before we shut it down?
I would just say a big plus one to all of that. We're really excited to be working with lots of folks to, on the diversity, inclusion in games and beyond. And I'd say this is going to be a big year. We're about to celebrate our year anniversary of the launch of our intention about last September at this time. And over the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be really exciting. We have some big grants to announce and the awards from our first open call for proposal. So I think the energy in this and the experimentation, which seems drip now over this fall, the fall of 2020, it's going to be a lot of stuff going on.
And if you have any questions about Grant for the Web or web monetization or any part of it, anything about the code or whatever, please ask. We are happy to answer everything.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you so much. And thanks to our audience.